So the Ringtail Connect API is a way to programmatically interact with Ringtail data. It's simple enough to be accessible for non-programmers to use to generate custom reports in an external program like Excel, but it's powerful enough to drive task automation and extensions of Ringtail's functionality and interface, like Jeff mentioned earlier. So with this initial release, the API provides read-only access to query Ringtail data, but we'll soon be adding the ability to modify Ringtail data through API interactions. So you'll see there's a new page called Ringtail Connect API Explorer on the portal. Now, access to this page is controlled on a per-user basis, so only explicitly authorized users will see it and be able to interact with the API. And just as a note, as we jump in here, we expect the API to be used by technical or development resources within an organization or a service provider who are generally familiar with these types of interactions and methodology and can use them in essentially a self-service manner by relying on the documentation. We don't really expect for most Ringtail users to be interacting directly with the API. They certainly might be using reports or other things that are built leveraging the API, but they probably won't be looking at this page. So the API Explorer page here allows you to build a query against the Ringtail API and run it to see the results, make sure you're getting what you expect before using it in an external application. The query builder has a smart type ahead suggestion feature that guides you in building a query by showing you what options are available based on your context. On the right, there's also Documentation Explorer, which is a hierarchy that you can navigate to see what's available in the API. The Ringtail API is a graph API, so it has a hierarchical structure with top-level objects called types, and each of those has nested objects within it. For example, if I drill into the root users type, first I can see which arguments I can use to filter the results for a query on users. And then if I click in here, I'll see all the different fields I can ask for about a user. If I go down here, you'll see that cases is one of the fields I can ask for, and this of course is its own type with its own fields. So if I drill in, I can see further detail about the cases. This would allow me to get detail about cases that each user is assigned to if I wanted to do that. So let's go ahead and build out a simple query to get the list of the users in the portal. You'll see I have some queries already in here. We'll look at those in a second, but why don't we just create a new one at the top. So to make a new query, I can just type query, and then I'll give it a name, users. And then we do an open curly brace. I can press Control Space at any time to see what are the items I can ask for given my context. So here I'm going to choose users. These are all the different top-level query types. I'll choose users. Another curly brace. And now if I do Control Space again, I can see what all the fields are I can ask for users. I'm going to ask for username and also email. And that's it. I've successfully written a query for the Ringtail API. I'll go ahead and run it. You'll see since I have several queries in here, I can choose which one I want to execute. And here's the results for the users query. It's a list of all the users with their email addresses in this portal. The results here are in JSON format, which is a standard that can be easily parsed and used in a variety of applications. If I want to use one of the queries here in an outside application, we have a copy to clipboard button that automatically formats the query as an HTTP request and converts the punctuation to the proper character encoding. So I can then paste that, for example, into Excel as a new data source and populate a table with the results of one of these queries. So I've actually already done that. I'll bring up my Excel in a second here with some of the queries. So for example, this next one here about threading, I asked for all the cases that I'm assigned to for information about the thread document type field and how many documents are coded to each item in this field. So that's the meaning of this query. And if we hop over to my Excel, I've used that query as a data source for this workbook to populate this table, and then I made a simple pivot table and pivot chart based on that to see a quick analysis of the proportion of thread duplicates that I've gotten across all my cases. As another example, this productions query, I asked again for cases that I am assigned to. Within that, I want a list of productions that are locked. So I filtered on the production status, and then I asked for these fields for production name, Bates, dot count, page count. And I brought that in to this tab, and so now I have a complete list of all my locked productions across all my cases. So as you can see, this is a nice way to get some data into an external program quickly to do some further analysis or refinement. We do have some documentation to help folks get started with the API. These examples that I showed here are pretty simple ones of just taking the structured data output from the API and into Excel. But the real power of the API is going to be unlocked by allowing the development of extensions and automation tools that really augment Ringtail functionality for custom needs. We are going to be showing more detail on that with the specific interface extensions in our next Power Users session.